Hi, welcome to I Can't Believe It's Not News with Beth and Elizabeth. Hi, Beth.
Hey, Elizabeth. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm scared to eat anything in my kitchen because it might be filled with AIDS-infected blood.
Really? I'm sorry. How did this come about?
Well,
did you have an interesting weekend?
did. I posted a story that a friend shared on our webpage about bananas that supposedly have been infected with HIV tainted blood, which shockingly was untrue. So they think, it's not true. And that picture has been circulating for a while. And I mean, that pisses me off. Like, really? You try to scare people that their bananas are infected with
bananas alone. Yeah.
Okay.
I saw that, but I didn't open it. Sometimes I'm afraid to open those things.
Yeah, I feel like we need really good, like, stuff on our computers to, like, scrub all this research that we have to do. Like, I'm definitely going to have to pop for the pay for spyware and, like, getting all that stuff off your computer.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, a friend of mine had sent that to me, and which is great. I was so excited to get something from somebody. And so if you're listening out there, please start sending us stuff. We really want to hear from you.
Oh, yeah.
To your articles. So send them over.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you got today?
Well, we need to start with apologies because we promised we would.
Yeah, we're sorry for everything that you're about to hear. It's going to be bad.
Well, I think the biggest thing we probably want to apologize for is our first episode that we posted accidentally had an extra 10 bonus minutes at the end, which we corrected.
Oh, I'd happily forgotten about that.
Yeah. And it definitely was an oversight, but it was easily corrected. And at the end of the day, it's not a big deal. But, yeah, that was a good thing to apologize for.
Yeah, it's just bonus material. That's all it is. It's for the hardcore fans.
Yes. If you are a true jammer, what I'm calling our fans, jammers, those 10 fans that we have, you can listen to that extra 10 minutes.
No, you can't.
Not anymore.
It's gone. It's gone forever. So only if you downloaded it before we realized, which was about like 1 o'clock in the afternoon or so the next day. And so if you're one of the original subscribers, then you have the lost material. It'll be worth something someday.
Oh yeah, like it's like the matchbook cars when they accidentally reverse the colors on them, and then like 50 years later they're worth $10,000. It's like that, totally.
No, don't tell people it's like that. They need to just delete it from their phone, and it needs to go away. It needs to go away.
Actually, we did a couple improvements throughout the week. We not only uploaded the episode without the bonus material, but we also added on an episode guide and just kind of fixed a couple things here and there. So as this episode airs, hopefully it'll be actually with the episode guide right away.
And so hopefully going forward, we'll have less and less to apologize for.
Right. Or more and more, depending on how you look at it. So it's kind of funny with the things that we got this week. I started seeing a new kind of fake news, and it's fake medical news. Mm-hmm. Something I hadn't come across as much. So I was on Facebook earlier this week, and I saw this article that had been posted by somebody in my extended family. And like right away, like my spidey fake senses were piqued. So this article is called "Scientists Warn Hair Dye is Causing Deaths. The Scary Reason Why Will Make You Sick."
Hair dye is causing what? Death, you said?
Yeah, it's causing people to die. And the scary reason why will make you sick. Now, I don't know if it has to be a scary reason. If hair dye is making you die.
Scary enough, right?
Like, that's scary enough. So it's kind of fun, though, because we actually have like a non-political article to review here.
Wow. Because, it's kind of weird because I don't look around and see a whole bunch of blondes dropping dead from scary things. So.
No, I haven't seen that either. I think that was part of the reason why I was like, this doesn't seem right. So let's take a look at this article real quick. You want to do it with me?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So this is by qpolitical.com. There was no date on it, but what they do is it posts like how many days old it is. So you can kind of figure it out, like, you know, if you want to. And then, oh, shoot. It took me to a survey, as fake news will do. Okay. So there is a name attached to it, but it's like I don't know. It's not a real name. It's RAZC. Raise, I guess. And if you click on that, it like takes you to this person's profile. So it's more like that's like their internet name or, you know.
Yeah, I don't even see. Where do you see that? Oh, gosh, what a pain. Yeah, so now stuff is popping up.
Yeah. So if you look under the scary picture that's right at the top underneath the headline.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to click on the name.
Yeah. It doesn't tell you much.
So it says that she's written 957 stories, had 17.5 million shares.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, are these her stories? Oh, these must be her stories. So let me pick one. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. So leprosy is spreading across America. Doctors warn to avoid this one thing at all costs. Yeah. Okay. So these are her stories.
Yes.
Okay.
She seems to have a health focus, but not necessarily a truth focus. So this article starts out by saying British scientists are warning that both at-home hair coloring kits as well as dyes used in expensive salons pose countless serious and life-threatening health risks. So I want to just remind you, the very first word there was British. And then it says, in a recent study, Dr. Gago Dominguez of the University of Southern California School of Medicine in Los Angeles, sounds super British, right? Discovered a link between cancer and hair dye. So this goes on, and basically what it is she starts quoting the Daily Mail like throughout the rest of this article. And I looked up, you know, hair dye, dust, Daily Mail, and like a bunch of articles popped up. They are all over this at the Daily Mail. They really don't want you to use hair dye. And even at the bottom of this blog, it shows an alternative that you can do is to use potato peels to dye your hair. And basically says that, you know, if you're not willing to use organic hair dye, that you should try the potato peel method. Otherwise, you're going to die. What else it goes through here is people have had allergic reactions to dye. It doesn't cite anything in here about people actually dying. It just cites a couple of people that have had allergic reactions. And I did look up all their, like, Google image search the pictures and the claims. And they were all true that those people had allergic reactions to dye.
Yeah, that's a thing. Yeah.
That is a thing.
That's why they have you do a test first.
Right.
That's in the package materials.
Yeah, and that's, you know, something that can happen. And obviously, like one lady in here, she was tinting her eyelashes.
Ooh.
Yeah, and so she had a pretty bad reaction. And
yeah, I bet.
You know, I wouldn't want that to happen to me either.
It's called mascara.
Yeah. Well, you know, and there's another lady in here that had a, you know, pretty bad, severe reaction, but they all lived. And, you know, maybe they don't dye their hair anymore.
So I clicked on where it says British scientists are warning, and the warning is a hyperlink. So I click on that thinking that it's going to take me to where British scientists are warning people about things. But what it does is it takes you to a page called realpharmacy.com, and pharmacy is misspelled like a farm. and so on the page, the first thing is the exact same picture that was in the article that I just came from.
Okay.
And it says, hair dyes used by millions of women contain chemicals linked to cancer. British scientists have warned. And there's no link there. So, it does talk about someone in Leeds. So the warning came from scientists at Leeds-based company Green Chemicals. who conducted a review of the chemistry surrounding hair dye. They said the information was already available and they simply joined the dots to make the link with cancer.
Yeah, I did some checking into this study that they also quote in here. Mm-hmm. The recent study, now let's keep in mind that it's 2017. This study was done in 2001.
Oh.
So I don't know if I would consider that recent.
Well, on my page here that I'm looking at, they are not suggesting that you color your hair with potatoes. They are suggesting you do it with coffee.
Oh, well, can you use used coffee grounds? Because I have a lot of those around.
So make really strong organic coffee, preferably espresso. Non-organic coffee most likely contains some added chemicals. Let your coffee cool down. That's really good advice. Mix 2 cups of leave-in all-natural conditioner with 2 tablespoons of organic coffee grounds and 1 cup of cold brewed coffee. Apply the mixture onto your hair and leave it in for about an hour. It will give your hair a beautiful chocolate color without any damage.
I tried to look up to see if the Daily Mail is sponsored by an organic hair company or something, to make sense of why they're so against this hair coloring. And I couldn't find anything. I also didn't try super hard. I was like, okay, this isn't going to work. I'm not going to find it.
It gets the clicks, and people respond really well to fear,
So I have this, an abstract of this study pulled up, and it was an actual study that was done in 2001 about the use of permanent hair dyes and bladder cancer risk. And a population-based case control study was conducted in Los Angeles, California, involving 1,514 incident cases of bladder cancer. They took out people who smoked, because that's just a major risk for bladder cancer. And then they looked at how many women had used permanent hair dyes at least once a month. And according to... Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yes.
Who's
especially permanent hair dyes.
Yeah. Who's I guess if you get your roots touched up.
That's true. Some people do
obsessively. Yeah.
But they had a 2.1-fold risk of bladder cancer relative to non-users. And it increased to 3.3 among people who did it for 15 years or more. And then there was a 5-fold increase for hairdressers and barbers that had been doing this for 10 years.
Yeah, I found on this page where it says, according to cancer.gov, several studies have found increased risk in bladder cancers in hairdressers and barbers, which is very different from the normal public.
Yeah, so I looked up at the U.S. Food and Drug Administration and what they think about hair dyes. And there did used to be some concern back in the 80s with some of the products that were in it. But they have since taken those products out. And the FDA is currently not concerned. They let people know, obviously, there's sometimes allergic reactions. And so you do need to be careful of that. They continue to monitor research on hair dye safety. And it says here, so the FDA continues to monitor research on hair dye safety. We do not have reliable evidence showing a link between cancer and coal tar hair dyes on the market today. We are collecting adverse event data, which helps us assess the safety of this class of ingredients. And then it says, if you have experienced an adverse event or bad reaction, please report it to the FDA.
Wait. What is cold tar hair dye?
Coal tar.
That's not any better. That doesn't help. Oh, excuse me. It's coal tar.
You're not familiar with 1970s ingredients and hair dye? Okay. Other people might have this question too. That's a good question. Okay, so the term coal tar colors dates back to a time when those coloring materials were byproducts of the coal industry.
Lovely.
Yeah. So today, most of them are made from petroleum, but the original name is still used. So they call them coal tar hair dyes. And that just means that they're hair dye.
Is that like black tar heroin?
I think they're both from the 70s, right?
Oh, Beth. Heroin is always fashionable.
I was hoping that it was going to say that they'd stopped using coal tar and they'd updated to solar.
DJT is bringing back coal tar hair dye.
Oh, God. He'll probably sign a regulation, like, oh, he'll take away a regulation that will allow them to actually just put coal into hair dye, like just straight up coal. We'll just rub it on our heads from now on. Forget that coffee trick.
If you're doing dark, that would work.
Yeah.
Get rid of that gray.
Keep those coal workers working. All right. Well, I have one other article here from the National Cancer Institute. And they have also done some research, or they've summarized some research here. So this is going to get a little science-y. Do you think you can bear with me a little bit?
Well, it kind of depends. We'll have to see.
All right. I'm going to keep it to one paragraph because this is a big article. But one of their headings says, what is the evidence that personal hair dye use is associated with the risk of NHL?
Oh, with the risk of a hockey game breaking out?
Yeah, I think they just wear wigs there, so I think it's pretty low. Like, no. NHL stands for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Not National Hockey League?
No. It's a cancer that apparently is, well, it's kind of hard to say. So I can understand why they give it the acronym.
Did you just make a cancer patient joke that they wear wigs there?
No, not on purpose. Wow, I'm a jerk.
What was that joke? What was that about?
I was just saying, if you go, well, I used to play hockey, but if you go to a hockey game, sometimes they wear the wigs, and like the team colors. But
I don't know that. Because I'm an American.
They don't actually dye their hair. They just wear a wig. Like, wow, I was killing it. I should have just been like, yeah, that's my sense of humor, Elizabeth. Roll with it. Come on. All right.
Yeah,
okay.
Fuck them, right?
Yeah. Screw them. They're just wearing wigs. Okay. I'm going to drop some science here on you, okay?
Is it heavy?
It's kind of heavy. Okay, so sit back here. Okay. So a number of studies have investigated the relationship between the personal use of hair dyes and the risk of NHL with conflicting results. Because the small size of some studies have limited their ability to detect an association between hair dye use and cancer, a pooled analysis of 4 case control studies was carried out. In all 4 studies had obtained detailed information on hair dye use, including dates and duration of use on the NHL subtype. This pooled analysis included 4,461 women with NHL and 5,799 women who did not have NHL. Okay, now here's the important part. Mm-hmm. The results of the study showed that women who began using hair dye before 1980 had a slightly increased risk of NHL compared with women who had never used hair dye, whereas no such increase in risk was seen for women who began using hair dye after 1980.
See, that's a lot of words, Beth.
That is.
Yeah, it is.
Okay,
so, no. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that it's like, it takes a lot to research this stuff.
It does take a lot to research this stuff. I mean, my husband is like, "Do you have a part-time job now?"
I mean, it's like, it's stupid, like it's this like stupid article. But I mean, I guess, you should be careful about what you put on your body, and you should think about it, and, follow the instructions and be a good consumer. But there's just a lot. And who's going to do that? Who's going to sit there and read all that and follow, the trail of breadcrumbs to figure out what the British scientists say and the people in California and the FDA in 1980, it's just a lot.
I guess it's us.
Yeah.
That's why we started this podcast. We're the ones doing it for you. Oh, hey, I want to mention really quick. The publisher of this article, Q Political, is a news and opinion blog with an extreme right-wing bias.
Yeah, I noticed that. I definitely noticed that. I'm looking at an article that said, victory, Trump signs new bill ending federal funding for abortions. Yeah.
So this is from Wikipedia. It says uses strong loaded words, promotes propaganda, and does not always source to credible information, has a very fact-checking record. And then on the fake news checker.com, it says Q Political publishes information that cannot be validated and that is anti-scientific fact. The information provided should be regarded as speculative opinion or propaganda and cannot be substantiated by fact or evidence. It is among the most untrustworthy sources in the media.
Wow.
That is pretty big there.
Dubious distinction.
Yeah. MediaBiasFactCheck.com listed as extreme right. Austar said this was a very biased title and the news source should be taken as opinion only.
So fear of hair dye plays very well with the ultra-conservative set, I guess. Fear of stuff, right? Stuff? They stuff in our stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. But, we wanted to talk about... Okay, so this is somebody who is in my family that posted this. So what do I do? Like, how do I respond to this?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a good question. And I think that's the big question, really, because whenever we confront it in our lives, I know for me, I sometimes have to say, okay, what am I going to do about this? And I know that I am kind of bad sometimes. I think I'm bad anyway.
Tell me more.
So if I see someone who's posting something that's just clearly not true, my first thought is, well, that's fake news, or, that's pretty obvious. And so I'll go and I'll look it up on Snopes and find out where they've debunked it, copy and paste the link onto their post, and just drop it like a Snopes mic drop. Boom.
You're like, Elizabeth out.
Boom. Right? And, dust off my hands, smugly walk away.
And then 2 hours later, when you get back on Facebook, that person has commented and said, "Oh, thank you, Elizabeth. I just really appreciate that. I just was uninformed and didn't know."
I wish I was as smart as you. Thank you so much. Exactly. Yeah, that's how that always happens every time. Well, but then last summer, it happened to me.
Oh, really?
I got a Snopes mic drop. It happened. So I was posting that Jill Stein is anti-vax. And someone came and dropped this Snopes article that says, like, the question on the Snopes article is Jill Stein anti-vax? And it says false. And then it goes into the text of her Reddit Ask Me Anything, where she takes about 2 paragraphs to describe her position on vaccines.
Okay.
She says the Green Party doesn't have an official stance, but I can tell you my personal stance. And she says, vaccines are very important. However, U.S. regulatory agencies are packed with corporate lobbyists and CEOs. FDA is run by pharmaceutical companies, and just kind of this drumming up the paranoia and the skepticism, which is all coming back around to the same anti-vax positions. So she's talking out both sides of her mouth. She's saying, oh yeah, I support vaccines, but you can't trust the government. You can't trust the organizations that are telling you that they're safe. You can't trust the scientists, all this. I don't agree with that big red false up at the top of that Snopes article. And that's what I said to him. Yeah. I've read that. I know what it says. I'm familiar, but I'm using my own critical thinking and not just believing Snopes as, the ultimate high authority on all things true.
I see on here, they have a tweet by her that says, as a medical doctor, I of course support vaccinations. I have a problem with the FDA being controlled by drug companies.
Yeah.
So she is kind of, she's not willing to commit to a complete yes or no on this issue. So I see where you're coming from there. Now I have a question for you. When that person did that Snopes mic drop on you, were you grateful? I mean, how did you feel? Like, were you like, oh, perfect. Somebody just told me I was wrong, but without even having to like form words around it. They were just like, here's a link. You need to do the research yourself. Kind of like a big F you. Like, I mean, how did you take it? How did you feel about it?
Well, yeah, I did. I mean, I did feel like it was a little bit like a big F you. And so, yeah, but I was prepared for it, though, because I had read that article. And so I was able to come back pretty quickly and put words together and say, you know, this is what I think of your article. But so, okay, so we know that that's not what we want to do. We've established that the Snopes mic drop is probably not the best way to interact with people.
I have like 2 ideas on how I could respond to this article, and maybe you can help me figure out which one I should do. So the first one is like, do I say nothing?
Well, okay, yeah. So do you want to engage? That's the first question that you should ask yourself. You shouldn't always go to, I got to save the truth, right? I'm a superhero. I'm going to fix this. Okay, so do we want to engage or not? Sometimes I just feel like the problem is too big. Like the fake news is so bad that it's not really something that I can even tackle because it's just so far from the truth. Like there's just not anything that I'm going to say is this, you know, and also the person, who's the person, you know, and there's some people that you're just not going to reach.
Yeah.
You know?
Are they reachable is a good question to ask.
Or do you have a relationship with this person?
Right.
Where you even want to engage with them? Because there are certain people in my life who could literally put anything online and I would not engage with that because I'm just not going there.
Right. It's kind of funny because sometimes when people are close to you, you do have a little bit, people kind of look to you're like, well, they're in your family. You should be the one that responds to them, not me, you know, but then sometimes you're like, but they're in my family. Like I can't respond to them. Like I have to eat, you know, Christmas dinner with this person and I don't want it to be awkward. So sometimes it's easier when they're close to you and sometimes it's harder when they're close to you, depending on what it is. But I think, you know, it's a good question to ask, like, do I want to engage or not? And if you do, like, okay, so who is this person? Are they reachable? And also, you know, is this my place? Like, are they going to hear from you what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah. So let's say that you have decided to engage. So the next question, to shame or not to shame? So how are we going to address this? You know, are we going to shame them into not sharing fake news or not believing this anymore? I think that probably the best way to talk about it is to treat them like a person who you respect. So you have to come at it from a place of respect. And if you can't do that, maybe you shouldn't be engaging with them.
That's a really good thought. Definitely respect the person, but challenge the idea, not challenging the person. And I like that a lot. And I'm not into the shaming thing. I'm sure I've probably done it, you know, either unintentionally or before I really thought about it. But I don't like to be shamed. Do you like to be shamed? Is that something that you take well? I mean, I just think about like, how would I respond? Like if I posted something that was incorrect and somebody, you know, let me know in a very respectful way, I would probably be really, you know, open to that. I might be embarrassed, but I would be open to hearing that. and maybe even, doing a little bit more fact checking in the future before I posted something. Well, whereas if I shame you, you're going to just fight back.
Yeah. Well, it really kind of matters how you come across it. So I found this article on a website called The Open Notebook, and it's by Brooke Burrell, and it's from February 21st this year. And it's called How to Talk to Your Facebook Friends About Fake News. And I really enjoyed it. It starts off talking about these two former classmates who live in different states, don't really interact with each other. Their interaction occurs online, and they get into a fight about a fake news story that one of them shared. And one of the friends, the one who wasn't the sharer, says, "The only reason I'm having this conversation is because I care about the country, and I know you do too." Okay. And so he starts off, well, he might have started off there, but he ends up, coming to the conversation with respect, and they were able to have a more positive conversation, than they would have if he had employed shaming. And so in the article, she talks about, maybe you want to try to find common ground and, like you said, respect that person, challenge the idea. Now, she is a science journalist, and so she feels like she has a duty to go out there and fight fake news. And Absolutely. She wanted to know, so she wanted to know if it's even possible to change minds. And so she asked the kind of people who would know. So she talked to 15 experts, sociologists, psychologists, communication specialists, media scholars. It's really weird. I don't see podcasters on this list.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're so sad. I didn't get a phone call. No.
Yeah, I know. So it's weird. It's weird.
We would have been like, I don't know, but can you give us your findings? Because that's fascinating. We'd like to talk about it on our podcast.
So what she talks about is what they came back and told her is sort of that it depends on the nature of the fake news and the disposition of that person. So if you have a story about, for example, like she cites the Zika virus, but I think your hair dye story is a really good example. It's something that's kind of innocuous, and it's not in some impacting that person's identity. It's not like talking about their politics or their religion or something that they identify heavily with. It's just, Here's a scientific fact, and, what you're claiming might not be true. It's like, embarrassing. Thank you. Delete.
Yeah,
right?
Because I think obviously the intent in posting that article is to give people, information so that they know, that hair dye might kill them. Mm-hmm. Obviously the intent there is good. And I see a paragraph in here where it says, countering fake news may be especially effective when it comes from someone with a similar political identity because it's less threatening. And that's the case here. This is somebody who likes the same things I like, has the same political views. So I feel like they would be more open to hearing back from me about this and would be okay with it. Whereas if it was somebody who didn't identify with me politically, even though it's not about politics, it would be more threatening because, here's Beth again, telling me how wrong I am again.
She's always shaming me. I hate Beth.
I'm always coming at you with those truth stories.
Well, and so they talking about the disposition of the person, not necessarily meaning if they come from the same, political ideology as you, but are they really into conspiracy theories? That might be something that would affect if they are open to information that does not fit into their worldview. And so she said that these researchers said that the deficit model may fail for fake news in other ways too. And what the deficit model is like an information deficit. It says that public hostility to science can result from a lack of information, like a lack of understanding about the scientific process. So if you weren't properly educated in the ways of science, you don't understand it. And it might seem like, something that seems arbitrary and, just comes from on high. And maybe if people had a greater understanding, there would be less hostility. But what they're saying is that in the case of fake news, what actually might be more important is cultural cognition. And that is where people identify strongly with the narrative of their culture. And I think that makes a lot of sense. So if someone lives in a deep red or a deep blue area, there's not a lot of incentive for them to see things from the other perspective, or, to have ideas or behaviors that don't jive with what goes on around them.
Yeah. And I think, you and I have even talked about how we need to be careful of that, because we have our biases, and we're not, we're trying to make sure that that's not overwhelming what we're saying here on this podcast, and we both live in very blue areas where it's, very common to have these beliefs. So we've tried to, check ourselves a little bit on making sure that we're at least explaining our beliefs and not just assuming that everybody listening to this believes exactly what we believe.
Yeah. Oh, I hope not.
Yeah, right? Yeah. We need to have a little devil's advocate out there.
Yeah. I don't know. I try to get out of my bubble a bit because, we have the bubbles that we live in, and then we also have the bubbles that we create for ourselves in our online communities. And so I don't know. I probably don't do a very good job, but anyway. And so Britt goes on to kind of say that when someone shares a piece of political fake news, it's an act of confirmation bias. It's an attempt to buttress their own point of view. So when you're actively doing this, even if it's fake, even if you're just doing this for entertainment and it's just, I'm putting it out there, we're all going to have a good laugh. But, if I'm sharing Pizzagate and I'm anti-Hillary Clinton, I might not necessarily believe it, but doesn't this seem like the type of thing that she would do?
Right. And I've had those thoughts with, sometimes you see a meme by like Occupy Democrats or something, and you're like, okay, that's just funny. You do think it's funny, and you do share it because you're like, oh, ha, ha, ha.
Oh, you share it?
Well, sometimes.
Oh, Beth.
Maybe in the past. I can't now. Like, come on.
Clean house. We have problems.
We can't be part of the problem that we're trying to clean up.
Oh, Beth.
I'll start a new Facebook page under a pseudonym and be like, here's where I can like all these things. No, just kidding. I would never do that.
So anyway, so she says that engaging with the person first is important and not the content, excuse me. So, I don't know if it's on this page or if it was just kind of an idea that I came up with. I think, so if someone is like anti-vax, like Jill Stein, you might...
Elizabeth is sticking to that. I do not believe that she is not anti-vax.
Oh, so what is this really about? Well, for most people, it's that they care about their kids and they're scared. And, they don't maybe have, the right information. But that's not a horrible place to come from, right? You just want to do what's best for your kids. And so maybe you can try to find a way to empathize with them on that and then present the facts. And, maybe you don't get you don't break through the first time. Maybe it takes a while. Maybe you're someone who they can't hear from, because you're, I don't know, a corporate statist or something like that.
Well, it's funny that you're using the vaccine as an example, because that is such a huge one to try to talk to somebody about. It's one of those where I think you do have to stop and ask that question, like, is this just so big that I'm not going to be able to help them? All I'm going to do is start a fight here.
Yeah.
So do I want to start a fight, or do I want to go make a smoothie? Like, those are my choices.
Well, and that kind of comes into the next point, is that are you going to have a fight online with this person who you care about, in this very public way where you both kind of have to dig in to save face?
Right.
Or maybe you can take it offline. Maybe you can PM them and say, like, hey, I just wanted to talk to you about your post, maybe let's have a cup of coffee sometime and, we can talk about it. I don't know.
Or a smoothie. I'm making
a smoothie.
Over.
I want a smoothie.
It's super healthy. So
is it organic?
Yeah, even if you're not vaccinated, it's going to be good for you.
You're going to need it, right? You got to boost that immune system.
Exactly. I've got a lot of turmeric in here to help boost your immune system. I think that's a really good way, something to think about for sure. I will say this, there is something to say sometimes for other people reading the comments that maybe haven't formed an opinion yet, or don't really know how to have that conversation with somebody else. And you may, with comments, help people, or people may be able to form an opinion that aren't even part of that conversation. Maybe they don't even engage.
Right.
But they remember that, or maybe they actually read an article that you've linked or something in it. So I think it can help. I know there's times where I've done that. I've read lots of other people's comments just to kind of see where they're coming from, see what's being said. I don't necessarily engage. There's been some times where I've jumped on and just given my support to somebody that I maybe thought was getting a little beat up, and just said like, oh, I think you're so great, or, such a, blah, blah, blah. Just, to kind of support that person that's maybe getting a little beat up, that, at least in my opinion, is giving some really good information and that I have found to be true. So I think
your tone matters too. Like when you're engaging with that person, if you're coming across as respectful, then it's, kind of like you're representing that viewpoint. And if other people see it, they'll say, oh, that Beth person, handled herself very well. And she's, representing this particular stance, and it'll be equated.
Right. I think one of the things I had jotted down was, when you're deciding whether or not to engage, I think a good question to ask yourself is, can you change minds? And then, are you okay with not winning? Like, right. What if this person doesn't change their mind from what you say? Is that going to be okay? And where's your cutoff point where you're willing, where you need to say, okay, I have to stop now because
this is getting my blood pressure up, or it's taken up too much time. Gosh, like how many hours have I spent fact checking things for Facebook posts and getting into arguments with people I don't know, and like these big, long, drawn out things. I don't do that anymore.
Yeah. So just some good questions to ask yourself, because I think at kind of the end of this article, it says like, the answer is it depends.
Yeah. So unfortunately, we don't have any easy answers here, but I think that, the recap is to, treat people with respect if you do have to engage. But it is worth it. It is worth engaging, because I know some people kind of feel like, well, what's the point? Minds aren't ever going to get changed if no one ever engages. If we're all just left to our own devices and not interacting with each other, which is the way that we're going. So it's just really tough. But I mean, if you're going to jump in there, you have to be ready. Say like, okay, I have my blood pressure medication and I'm ready. But real quick, though, before we move on, I just want to take a look at this article on 538 that Brooke Borrell also wrote. It's called Fact Checking Won't Save Us from Fake News. And it's really good. She, the first thing that she does is she talks about what fake news is. And then she talks a little bit about, she has a link to a list of fake news sites, talks about browser extensions that identify fake news sites. It also flags questionable Facebook posts, corrects Donald Trump's tweets, that kind of thing.
What? There's a Donald Trump tweet corrector? That's awesome.
It says fact checking is the key to journalism, which is true. Fake news purveyors have even co-opted the term fake news. In early December, conspiracy theorist Alex Jones published his own list of fake news sites. At the top are the New York Times and the Washington Post. Yeah, so, that's kind of the type of thing that I was talking about earlier when I said that some things are just too big, right? Like, so if someone is posting something from InfoWars and they believe things Alex Jones says, and they believe that the New York Times and Washington Post are fake news, I don't know what to say about that because you occupy a completely different reality from me.
Yeah, here's my opinion on that. Alex Jones is a fucktard. That is my official name for him.
Not a scientific term, Beth.
Yes. They studied his DNA and they're like, well, he's a fucktard. I don't know what to tell you. No, did you see that? So I guess Alex Jones is going through a divorce and his attorneys are basically arguing that his radio persona is a character. And so they shouldn't hold anything that he says on the radio or anything that he puts out there under InfoWars as anything to do with whether or not he's a good enough parent.
Oh, well, that's really interesting. I've seen that he's going through a divorce, but I haven't clicked on any of the stories.
I mean, I have a lot of questions there. Like, one, like, who married him?
Right. What kind of person?
Was he like that when they got married? And then she was like, holy shit, I married a fucktard? Or what?
Like, she's probably like, holy shit, I enjoy being rich.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But I don't know who his soon-to-be ex-wife is or anything about her. So I will offer her my sympathy. She was married to Alex Jones, for crying out loud. So.
Wow. His poor kid or kids. I don't know.
Ugh.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. So, but this is the real thing this is a real reason why I wanted to talk about this particular article and why I didn't want you to look at it right away.
It's my surprise.
It's your surprise until we talked about it on the show, because she gets into the history of news and of fake news. And she talks about the Great Moon Hoax.
Shut the front door. Are you serious?
Yeah. So we talked about the Great Moon Hoax last week at length. Beth did some research on it, and it's one of the first fake news stories. And I'll just read from the article here. It says, which claimed that an English astronomer had discovered fantastical beasts living on the moon. And the best part is the awesome illustrations from that time depicting the Great Moon Hoax. Are you looking at them now?
I am. They're so beautiful.
Aren't they gorgeous? I just fell in love with them. I'm just really enchanted by these pictures. They're just really, really cool. So
if fake news looked like this today, I would be okay with it.
No, it looks like Alex Jones.
Yeah, no, these are beautiful pictures though. And like, you can see where people would be like, oh, that is, I want to see that. It's so cool.
Yeah. So it's super cool. And I think that everyone should go and check out this article. And so we'll have a link to it on Twitter and on the page.
Yeah. And we'll put it on the episode guide too. Yeah. This is really cool. I like it.
Yeah, and then there's another illustration. It's the one that's up at the very top. That's what it is.
That's my favorite one. I like it a lot. I want that on a t-shirt.
Yeah, that would make an awesome t-shirt, wouldn't it?
And then underneath we could put spread jam, not lies. Ah! T-shirts coming soon.
Yes, merch.
Okay. Well, hey guys, if you enjoyed this episode, follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Podcast Fake News.
And if you have any fake news that you want to send our way, you can do it through email as well at podcastfakenews@gmail.com.
Yeah. And jump on to iTunes, subscribe. give us a nice
5-star review.
If you're so inclined, we would appreciate it.
Sure.
We are actually looking at, I just want to give a shout out real quick. We have a broader base than we thought we would. I will say we looked at our stats, and there's people listening across the world. So we are a worldwide podcast.
Any on the moon? Any fantastical beings listening on the moon?
I don't know if the stats go that far.
Who knows?
We should talk to our hosting site and be like, look, you're limiting us to Earth. No, but we were super excited when we saw that people even outside the U.S. are listening, and really people outside of where we live are listening, which was pretty amazing.
People outside of our family are listening. That's amazing.
Yeah, so that was really cool. So keep listening. Keep sending us some articles. We got some articles from some friends this past couple weeks, and it was really fun to look at and to see. And
yeah, we really appreciate it. And just because we don't get to something right away doesn't mean that we don't have notes and we aren't going to come to it later.
Yeah, it just means we have jobs.
Yeah, no, I have a fun Alex Jones one that I'm going to be doing later too.
Oh,
so yeah,
I can't wait to see that.
That's
have
it.
a good day.
Yeah, and in the meantime, spread jam,
not lies.